Welcome to Studio 452, where we explore stories, relationships, and bold ideas shaping our shared future. Today, we are joined with someone whose leadership has left a lasting mark on SSA, not just on the zoo world, but me personally. SSA is a company. Dr. Jeff Ettling is the CEO of Jacksonville Zoo and Gardens and formerly led the Sedgwick County Zoo, where we had the privilege of working together. We also have Carrie Newton, who is our Director of Communications and Brand Voice, and David Rosenberg, our EVP of Guest Experience. Jeff is a leader who understands the power of purpose, the kind of purpose we talk about when we say 452. It's about creating moments that make people feel seen, heard, and valued, and remembered. His vision for what a zoo can be as a place of connection, conservation, and impact is deeply aligned with our why at SSA. So today we're talking about what it means to lead with intention, how those early partnerships helped shape our approach to guest experience, and what it looks like to carry that philosophy forward into something even bigger. So Jeff, let's start with the heart of it. You've experienced 452 as both a partner and a leader. When you think about that philosophy now, making people feel seen, valued, and remembered, what does it mean to you personally, and how is that showing up in your work at Jacksonville Zoo?
Yeah, it took me back to the very beginning of my career. I think sometimes I started out as an animal caretaker. I was a reptile keeper, to be specific. But I think sometimes that level gets lost in the shuffle sometimes, particularly as people advanced in their careers. And I think to always remember, for myself personally, is to remember what it was like at that level. And they want interaction with their leadership team. And one of the things that, for me personally, that I used to always say is that if I'm ever sitting in that chair, I'm going to do it a little differently, because I want everybody to know who I am and that I am approachable, that I'm not living in an ivory tower someplace. And so that's why I make myself accessible to all of our team. I go out in the zoo daily, sometimes twice a day. I interact with our guests. I get a lot of our staff that interact with me. But then I've also started some other avenues for them to be able to communicate with me, because everybody communicates on different levels. You can have an open door policy, but you get the same suite of people that will come visit you in your office. So I have monthly coffee chats with Dr. Jeff, is what they're called. And they can ask me anything related to the zoo. And some of our board has started showing up, and they'll ask stuff right in front of my board chair. They're not afraid. So that makes me feel good too, is that there's a comfort level. And I think that's what it really gets down to, is that we're all comfortable within that working environment. I think that's where the best ideas emerge too, that it's not a top down, that we want ideas to come from all facets of our team. I've put together a new innovations committee, and it's not run by any of my senior team. It's literally our IT director and our director of business ops. And I said, I don't want this to be assigned. I want you just open it up and let anybody from the team come and participate. And it's a way for you guys to come up with ideas of, maybe we have policies that are outdated, but also what are some new potential revenue streams that maybe we're missing out on that interact with our guests. I think there's an opportunity for them to come and just have this free flow discussion. And then I said, put this all together and then flesh out 3 or 4 of those that you think really have promise, and bring that to our strategic operations team. So I think those are just a couple examples of how I think all of that comes together and allows for a lot of innovation to take place.
What we appreciate about the partnership with you, I was just at Jacksonville Zoo this past weekend and had time to spend with Tanya, our general manager, and there is no difference between your staff and our staff. So
No.
she feels as though she could go to your office anytime, have any conversation with you. So you've spread that love not just with your Jacksonville Zoo team, but with the SSA team as well. And we appreciate that. And I think that's what makes us a successful partnership.
I agree.
Because we feel we have a seat at the table, and we're part of your plans and part of the innovation and the ideas that you have for the future. So we appreciate that.
I just pile on to that, because I think what I see when I look across, whether it's SSA accounts or just any attraction, is when there's the seamless experience from start to finish, the staff level is the same, that the staff are equally trained, there's equal communications. whether they work for SSA, whether the institution directly, whoever they are, the more that's consistent, the more consistent the visitor experience is. And visitors see that, they feel it all the way across. And that's just, it's great to hear that you're taking that you're leading that type of environment.
That's awesome. I want to hear more about your office hours, because I think that's your anecdote about remembering back to when you started in the zoo and intentionally saying, if I ever get to that top level or one of the top levels, I'm going to do it differently. I think that's very insightful. And I think there's a lot of that in SSA, just that open door policy about, I think people feel like they have access to you, Tara, and to you, David, and to Sean. And it breeds a culture that is really special. So how has that, your entrance into Jacksonville Zoo, bred that culture of feeling like somebody belongs there, whether they're at your level or they're on the front lines?
Yeah, that's a great question, because like a lot of our AZA colleagues around the country, is we've all been on this journey for particularly the last 5 years, of how do you rebuild culture within your organization. And we were on that journey in Jacksonville before Tony retired, and we had to build on that. And then you get a new leader in there. And I think can be a very stressful time for people, because I've been through it a couple times in my zoo career. I remember when Charlie Hessel retired in St. Louis, where I spent most of my zoo career, 26 years. That's my hometown zoo where I grew up. I remember saying to myself, Dad's leaving, what are we going to do? So, because there's anxiety there too, because you have somebody that's been at the helm, so to speak, for quite a while, and there's a trust and a comfort there. And so I think part of my philosophy when I got to Wichita and then to Jacksonville after that was, I want them to get to know me and realize that there's not going to be dramatic changes taking place right out of the gate. I want to learn and I want to listen. I think just the availability, there's opportunity for them as well to approach me and engage with me as well as they're comfortable doing. But I do think that there's that point of, you want to be able to know everything that's going on too. That, not that I want to have my fingers in it, but I think that I'm aware of what's actually happening. And then when people ask me a question, that I know what you're talking about. Sometimes they bring questions to me at the coffee chats that I'm like, I don't know. I'm going to have to find out. Some of them are related to insurance or something like that. Would there be no reason for me to know that level of depth? But I find an answer, come back the next month and tell them. So, but I think for me, it's a novel approach that I think provides some comfort to people. That when I first got there, I went around over the first 3 months and tried to meet with as many of the teams as I could. I asked them the same questions because I wanted to see how the different teams responded to the questions that I had. And then I had them give me behind the scenes tours of every area in the zoo. And I've been a AZ accreditation inspector since 1998, a few years. So I'm always looking at things through the lens of an accreditation inspector. And we had a board retreat up at White Oak, up the road from us, about 100 days in. And I told the board what I heard from the teams and then what I saw. And I said, we have about $5 million we need to reinvest in ourselves. And we had some financial resources that they let me put towards that. So we've been, over the last 2 years, upgrading things across our campus in addition to the big major capital build we have going on, which I think has gone a long way for morale, because it's easy to focus on the new shiny thing. But when you have a 100-year-old campus, you want everything, in my mind, to look synonymous. And so we've gone back in and done a lot of work over the last 2 years. Still got a little bit left to do, but tremendous amount of work to get everything up. And I think that makes people feel good that we're not just focused on this new entrance and manatee and whatever's going to come next, that we really are spending some time with things that are in all of their respective areas to give that some new life as well.
When I think about that, I think of 452 as creating hospitable moments that have a lasting impact. And we say it's not just with our guests that we serve, it's with our people and with our partners as well. And so not only are you making these these changes to, in essence, create 452 moments for your guests, but you're doing it for your people as well.
Yeah.
And I imagine that they are very appreciative of it.
And our guests notice it too. So when they see, I walk around the zoo like this. There's not too many people walk around with a suit jacket on during the day. And it's interesting. There are some days, if it's really hot, I look like any other guest except I have a name tag on. They don't look at me the same way as if I'm dressed like I am right now. It must just be a pivotal thing. Oh, this must be the zoo director. Mm-hmm. And that's usually I get asked, but it's become apparent over the last year that our guests are noticing the changes we're making too, in a very positive way. I heard it exuberation from some folks that had not been at the zoo for a while. I said, I appreciate you saying that because we've invested a lot to try to get it up to this point. It is being noticed, I think, by internally as well as by our guests as well. And having grown up in the Show Me State, you would have thought that all of my team was from Missouri as well, because it's easy to talk about something and that we got these kind of resources. They want to see it happen. When it coming out of COVID, a lot of the things that we were putting in place, they had to build for us. They don't keep it on the shelves anymore. So I kept telling them, it's all going to start happening at once. And it did. We just had all these projects that all of a sudden just came up out of nowhere. I think now we've proven, yep, we are going to do the things that we're saying we are. I think there's probably been lots of times in the past throughout my career where you hear about something's going to happen and then it never transpires. We have a common language too that's been part of this culture redevelopment. And so a notion is, it may not go anywhere. It's literally just that. So people understand that versus a tombstone, which means I'm not moving on this. And I haven't hanged tombstones since I've been there. But I think when you've got 4 or so terms that everybody understands what those means, that it puts the discussion in a little different context. I know most of my zoo career that if the director walked in and saw something, said something about it, you automatically put a work order in because you're expected, they want something done with it. It's nice having the terminology, and I learned that early on. They'd already been in that mindset a year and a half before I got there, is that before I learned that in my first 2 weeks, they were already turning in work orders because I was walking through areas and I'd say, why is that like that? As soon as I learned the language, I could say, this is just a notion. You don't have to do anything with it. And I have a lot of notions, believe me. But
We need Sean to adapt that.
yeah,
I'm thinking the same thing right now.
I have a lot of notions, and I consider myself very creative, so I like to throw things out there to hopefully spur them into thinking, okay, just because we've always done it this way, which is a term I don't like to hear, but that they can take it and just run with it. And sometimes that's a real blessing when you can do that and let somebody else develop it further. And I think one of the things that gives me the most satisfaction in this role is being able to get the people that work on our team across our campus the resources they need to do their job. And if I think back 38 years ago when I started working in AZA Zoos, this wasn't on my bucket list of things to do. And I spent 26 years as a reptile curator, and I'd probably still be doing that if I hadn't had somebody that opened my eyes up and said, maybe you should think about doing something a little different with all these new resources you have in your toolbox. I think it's been an organic, natural evolution. And I think a lot of the things we're talking about have come out of that it wasn't a driven thing of that I was focused on. I was going to get from here to there. Things just happened organically. And I think that's why it's worked out the way that it has.
I really like what you said about building, and you did not use the word trust, but a lot of what you said was around the word trust, right? You walk around and talk to the staff. You built trust by spending time with them in their individual areas. You have the background. You came in from the animal side and bring that forward. That's trust. And because you've built the trust throughout the staff, even the trust of the visitors as you're walking around in your suit, that then lets you do a lot of what you want to do. And I think that ties a little bit into 452 hospitality as well. Hospitality is about building that level of trust with those around you to then provide that type of level of service.
Yeah. Because people come back to things that are good for them. And that's true anywhere in life. You go someplace, you remember the bad experiences and you don't typically go back there. And I think that's where the partnership between SSA and the Jacksonville Zoo, I think that's what really shines, is it's the focus on our guests. Those are the ones that we're interacting with. They don't see a lot of what goes on behind the scenes. We have some behind the scenes opportunities that people can register and have a group outing or with their family. But most of the time, it's just the front side of our zoo and gardens. And so it's that experience they have with members of our team as well SSA, which makes that great experience for them and the memories, and they want to come back.
Absolutely. I can't remember exactly what you just said but what came to mind was people come back for the feeling, right? When you go take your family to a zoo or aquarium or a restaurant even, if you had a bad experience, whether it's the service or the food wasn't great, it's like the feeling that it created in you that is making you not go there again, or it's making you want to go there again. So talk to me a little bit more about this. You said you're working on I don't know if you said culture shift or culture work.
Yeah,
since you've
we've
come
been
to the zoo?
rebuilding an inclusive workforce,
Okay.
inclusive culture. That's been the kind of the terminology we've used. We have a culture committee that's run by on the ground. It's not run from a top down, it's bottom up team. They came up with all of our new values that we have for the zoo and gardens. It wasn't generated by the board and the strategic operations team. It was generated by the culture committee. And they did a great job. They took their time. They did a lot of work. They did a lot of deliberating and came back with definitions of what these values actually mean for the Jacksonville Zoo and Gardens. And what was the first part of the question?
So I was just saying people are coming,
Yeah.
whether it's they're working for the zoo
Yeah, for sure.
or they're giving the guests the great experience at the zoo. It's all about what are they feeling when they're at work or when they're experiencing the attraction. And I think there's something really powerful in that, in having people work at SSA for 20 some years. They're like, it's the feeling we get. It's that 452 feeling we get for working with these colleagues. It's the feeling we get at working at Jacksonville Zoo because we have such trust in our leaders and we're empowered to give our ideas and share our ideas.
Yeah, I think as a nonprofit conservation organization, trying to get that message to resonate with people that come visit, whether they're from out of state or our local families, so to speak, our local constituents that are coming and are supporting us, is we know they come to have a good time with their friends and family. But how do we instill that by coming and having that good time, that they're also doing a good thing for the planet? So in our case, $1 from every admission, $4 from every membership goes into the care of the animals at the zoo, as well as their wild counterparts. I don't know, even though it's on our website, I don't know that really resonates. But part of that is you want them to come back. And so what we were just talking about, they have to have a good experience that feels good. And hopefully as the more they come back, it's that repetition of hearing the Tide commercial is what I keep telling. We have these discussions on our team is that they need to know about what the mission of the Jacksonville Zoo and Gardens is. And the only way they're going to know that is they're just got to hear it incessantly. And I think that historically, we've all been doing great conservation work for a long time. We just don't talk about it as nauseum to the level that we need to. But part of that is getting that repeat visitation. And that's going to really hinge on that. Did they have a great time with their family and friends? They had a great meal together and shared some great time during that day. And I think that it's that will help, that type of event that will really help drive the mission home in a bigger way, and we'll get them to come back on a regular basis. And we have to stay top of mind with them. There's too many other diversions out there that are in their face all the time, the water park, whatever it might be. How do we have to keep the zoo and gardens top of mind, and that it's a safe place to be in nature with your friends and family.
And we always say that sustainability, or the concept of sustainability, does not drive gate. You're never going to hear that in your marketing pitch.
No.
But once they're there and you build that empathetic connection, that's what gets people to come back over and over again. And somebody had always said to me, and I love this, that people come for the animals, but they often leave remembering the people.
Exactly.
And when it's the people that help to build that empathetic connection,
Right.
and it sounds like that's in line with how you've been thinking about it.
Yeah, if I think about all of my zoo career early on, the keepers you might see some of them out in the front doing work, but a lot of it was behind the scenes. But anytime you'd open a door, they were looking in to see what's going on. Now we've opened those doors up more and more because they want to interact with an animal keeper. They really do. Or anybody on our team. Anybody that's got a zoo uniform on, they want to interact with them. And I used to tell my team in St. Louis when I was there is that don't ever make anything up because they're going to remember exactly what you said. And this was in the days before computers and that. And so we had note cards. And the reason that I gave that example is I had a guy call me and said, I'd been at the zoo and I was in the herpetarium, and he described this keeper to a T. And I had a great conversation with him and remembered everything that he had told him. And so we were having a departmental meeting. And that's where I made that statement. This guy remembered everything you said. So don't ever make anything up. If you don't know, say, hey, I don't know, but let's find out. Write down your address on here, and I will research this for you, and we'll both learn, and then we'll send it out. Now you can pull your phone out and dial it in, and the answer right there with them yeah, you can just right there. But we didn't have it back then. But those interactions are very pivotal in their memories that they will never forget. I also think from a sustainability standpoint, you know this as well as anybody, is that kids hold their parents accountable. One of the things that I said while I was in Wichita, and I'm saying it in Jacksonville as well, is that, conservation is this very holistic view that takes in, one, we're looking at wildlife and wild places, but also, are we being good stewards of the planet? Even on the parcel of land that we sit on, which is like 120 acres, is that we have to demonstrate to our guests that they can do these same things at home, because every action makes a difference. And so by recycling rain barrels, I think one that is very pivotal and it changes people's views is, I think about in our restaurants now with you guys, is having silverware and a washable tray or a bowl. That's a very different impression than something that they're putting into the waste bin. It's like eating at home. And one, it's great from a sustainability standpoint, but I think from that guest experience, it puts a whole different front on it for sure, of that this isn't just a fast food come in and you can literally spend as much time you want here having a meal with your friends or family, and it's like being at home.
Never thought of it that way.
Yeah. It's something that you're also diving in on, is the alignment of values, right? And as we know, Generation Z is the highest propensity visitor throughout cultural attractions. And they have a very high expectation that the organization aligns with their values. And how do you define values? Of course, it's what you just said. It's their personal values. It's the values that they have at home. Ties in with 452. 452 is all about values, and the values that I love when Sean talks about the values he had at his home and welcoming people and carrying that out throughout the organizations that we partner with. And I just love hearing how you're aligning with the values and the expectations of the current generation.
It's interesting. AZA's trend report, that's every 10 years, I believe. And it's interesting looking at how Generation Z looks at zoos and aquariums. They look at very different than baby boomers. Baby boomers love zoos. That's not so much the case with Generation Z. And I think the big thing that stands out is that they want to ensure that you're taking the best care possible of the animals you have at your respective zoo or aquarium. If you're doing that, they're more likely to get involved with supporting the conservation work. I would have thought prior to seeing that it might have been their way around, as a focus on the conservation out in the field. But it really is, it hinges on the care that you're taking first, and then they'll get involved with that. The other one that really stood out is, there's two things that really stood out, is they would rather see fewer species living in bigger spaces or multiple species living together. And in fact, we embrace that at Jacksonville Zoo and Gardens. I like to say fewer species living large. And I think the late Terry Maple, while he was doing some work for us, may have coined that. So I'm not going to claim it, but I love it. And I think it's true. And that resonates with them. The other one is, if they really want to see a focus on local wildlife conservation, if they see that the zoo is doing that, they're more likely to get involved with supporting your projects around the world. I think it's very pivotal for us that the first and last thing to see when you come into Jacksonville Zoo and Gardens through our new entrance is a new 330,000 gallon manatee rehabilitation habitat. And then Wild Florida is just to the right of there. So really will be a big focus on animals and plants in Florida. And then you can make the rest of your journey around the world, so to speak. But I think looking at those are things that they really value, is that if we ignore those, I think it's going to put us in a bad position moving forward, because they really don't value the way that we look at the world today, because they're looking at it through a very different lens, and a very critical lens too. Even if you think about from a climate change perspective of, don't leave, you guys aren't going to be here, but you're leaving us with a fiery planet. And I've heard that terminology. So those things resonate with me. And I think I look at the role of the modern zoo and aquarium as probably more important than it's ever been in our history, for a lot of reasons. Namely, is we're one of the last safe places that children in particular can have connection with nature. It's not like it was when I was growing up in the 70s, and I'd be gone all day. Rode my bike up the Mississippi River, be gone all day. I was up in the woods catching snakes. A lot of kids don't do that today, and the world's a different place than it was 40 years ago too. I think that if we can get them there and connect them to what we're doing, and we know that pro-environmental behaviors develop at a very early age, so being nose-to-nose with a tiger or touching a chinchilla or a snake or whatever it might be, we know that has a lasting impression, and you start to develop those pro-environmental behaviors. And I think that's just as important as the work we're doing in the field, as well as the genetic material we're maintaining in our respective zoos, because they're going to be the next decision makers.
Yep.
And we have to connect them in a big way and instill that value of taking care of the planet.
Very good. We have time for one more question. I don't know if either of you have a question. Can close it with the typical. We're talking about 452. So can you share with us a moment where someone made a lasting impact on you, whether that's in the zoo, in your personal life?
One that just comes to mind. I've had a number of people in my life that have resulted in why I'm sitting here today. But the one that's probably most pivotal to the last 8 years as CEO was an executive leadership coach I had in St. Louis. We were going through culture redevelopment there, and it was low-level management that was helping drive this, not from top. And as part of that, we were going in teams of 5 down to Disney's Leadership and Excellence course, which was outstanding. But then we also were working in small groups with an executive leadership coach at a project. And then we were going to be meeting once a month for 2 hours to talk with him individually. And I remember thinking to myself, what are we going to talk about for 2 hours once a month? That turned out to be the best part of the whole experience. And he was the one that really opened my eyes up, as I alluded to earlier. I don't remember the exact question that he asked me, but I remember his response was, does anybody here at the zoo know that you think about this place this way? And I said, they've never asked me. And he said, not that I want to see you leave St. Louis, but maybe, and I had just finished my PhD a couple years before that. And I think that helped give me a different perspective, because there was times I was away from the zoo 2-3 days a week. I spent a summer in Armenia that I was looking at the zoo from a 30,000 foot view for the first time in my zoo career. And that was part of probably that answer that I had provided to him. And he said, you've got all these new tools. You got all these several decades of experience working on the ground. Maybe it's time to spread your wings a little bit. So I give him a lot of credit to this day for why I went to Wichita in 17 and why I'm in Jacksonville today, is that I think he really opened my eyes up, because I was challenged in St. Louis. I had lots of great things to do there. I'd probably still be there today, but I think he put a different lens on it and opened my eyes up to a different world that I wasn't looking at through that way.
We're very grateful for him as well.
Yeah.
Because we wouldn't have had the opportunity to work with you. So, Dr. Jeff, thank you so much for sharing your insights, for spending time after a long flight. It was a long flight. Yeah, you're coming from Jacksonville. Just giving us insights on your journey and the passion that you have for connecting people with wildlife. It's very clear that your leadership has brought remarkable impact to Jacksonville Zoo and Sedgwick County as well. And we are truly proud and grateful for the partnership that we have with you. So to our listeners, thank you for joining us on this episode in Studio 452. See you next time.